So this is another debunking of what Mr. Chandrachud, Justice Chandrachud is all about. यही तो रोना है मुझे अंग्रेजी नहीं आती और आपको. This is the video of a lawyer and a judge arguing over the use of Hindi. Yeah, you were talking about some of the judges who come from tier 2 towns. They probably don't speak English in the way, say, a Nani Palkewala would talk in English, you know, or a Soli Sorabji would speak in English. That kind of, or even why should I go there? Like, or Kapil Sibal, or the other lawyers speak in English, and this is the lawyer who says that मैं हिंदी में नहीं बोल सकता इसीलिए. I mean, English में नहीं बोल सकता.
But that's the strength of our system, right? It shows that our lawyers and judges are so rooted to reality. I had a colleague in Allahabad, when I was Chief Justice of the Allahabad High Court, who wrote all his orders in Hindi. And I asked him, I said, साहब आप सारे orders हिंदी में लिखवाते हैं? So he says, मैं क्या करूँ? मैं district judiciary से आया और हमारे पास English stenographers ही नहीं थे. तो English लिखने की आदत ही नहीं पड़ी कभी. So he wrote everything in Hindi. But that just shows you the diversity, of the system, of the Indian judicial system. And that's how all of us, I mean, I was, a product of an English medium school. My parents didn't go to an English medium school. My sister and I went to an English medium school. But, I went to an English medium college, university, Delhi University. But yet, when I went to Allahabad, I realized that the lawyer would say, "May it please your lordship," and then start talking in Hindi. And, my ability to speak in Hindi in whichever way I spoke at that time, it reached out to the hearts of people because they realized that you could converse with them in a language which was close to them, in which way they wanted to express their grievances, in which they wanted to narrate the stories of injustice of real people who came to the court. And I think, therefore, it's necessary for us to emphasize regional languages in the work of the judiciary.
Tempers rise a lot in the courts. I mean, now that we are watching it on live, and, you are supposed to be this, or one saw you as being this very equanimous kind of a personality, and then suddenly one day you just banged it, I'll throw you out of my court when you got so angry. What happened that day? How did you lose it that day?
Sometimes, I think...
It's my court.
Sometimes your anger gets the better of you and the lawyers get the better of you. You're constantly telling yourself when you go into the court that I'm not going to lose my temper and I'm going to maintain my calm, especially in certain areas where you have multiple lawyers, screaming at you from all sides. But sometimes, obviously, you're human. You sort of, you miss the boat, so to speak. And
so when you're sitting in a panel and you have disagreement with the other judges, do you snap? Or
no, not at all.
No.
I think, because over a period of time, we were three of us sitting in the Chief Justice's court, for instance, or in the High Courts, 2 judges, or sometimes 3. But normally Chief Justice in India in a bench of 3 judges. And when your 2 colleagues give you a different perspective, I always looked upon that as an enriching perspective because one of your colleagues would tell you something in a case which you had missed. And, listening to that perspective, you would always say, oh, yes, you're right. And, you would always accept that viewpoint. I always had my own formulas. For instance, if it was a case of the grant of bail, I would always feel that if one of my colleagues, even if I was not completely inclined or I was wondering what to do, if one of my colleagues said, well, let's grant bail here, I would say it's a question of personal liberty. So let's go with the colleague who is granting bail. Right. So, you follow these unwritten ways of conducting yourself. But even when there was a difference of opinion, sometimes where there's a very strong difference of opinion, you'd retire to the chambers, or when judgment is reserved, you'd go back to chambers and sit with your colleagues. And we'd always, 9 cases out of 10, we'd find a solution. Well, I always told my colleagues that you are entitled and perfectly within your rights in writing a dissenting opinion. Just as I wrote a dissenting opinion. I wrote a dissenting opinion in the Aadhaar case, in the Bhima Koregaon case. Yeah. Mine was a dissent. I wrote a partial dissent in the marriage equality case. So I always told my colleagues that please feel completely free to write a dissent. And I have no problem with that. I don't take it to heart.
Okay. And in the Ayodhya case, was there dissent? I mean,
oh no, not at all. We were all unanimous.
But in the discussions that were happening,
everything came down to one. Well, obviously there are different perspectives.
Okay.
When you're assessing the testimony of a witness. a colleague will point out something to you which, that colleague thinks is of great importance. In that case, it's all about the oral evidence and the documentary evidence. A colleague will tell you something about the documentary evidence which you have discussed in your judgment. So when the draft is circulated, a colleague will send you a little note with a marginal note saying that, on this, please see this particular document exhibit so-and-so. Would you like to just dwell on it a little more? That's the actual consultation process which takes place between colleagues.
Click here to watch the full episode.